So you want to know the secret behind getting the love you want. You're here because you've got a pretty good marriage. Your husband's a great guy. He's a good father. Or maybe he's your second husband or your third husband, but he's a great guy. You picked a good one and you know it. And yet you're not exactly getting what you want, and you're here for all the goods, okay? Just looking, I put that little sign up there, and now the live ticker is in the way. Well, I'll try something different next time. Okay, so if you've been here from the beginning, this is a 4-part series on what women really want and, of course, how you can get what you want. So you can head back to the beginning. They're in my private Facebook group here. Go back to 1 we talked about. Are you too needy? Spoiler alert, no. I'll tell you why. Number 2, what your true needs are. Number 3, the number 1 thing blocking you from receiving what you desire. And now we're talking about the secret thing you need to get what you desire. Okay. You might be sitting here going, I've done all the things. I've said all the things. Like, why is it such a struggle? Why do I keep, hitting this block? It's like you're hitting your inner glass ceiling, the upper limit problem, as Gay Hendricks call it. We limit ourselves. We have a thermostatic range of what we are able to tolerate in our lives. And that's both good and bad. Right? You can see this in any area. You can see this in money. You can see this in love. You can see this in happiness or career or health or fitness, is that there is a comfort zone which was established in our childhood. And whenever we try to go above our comfort zone, we sometimes feel weird. It doesn't feel good. And we get stuck and we do things to get in our own way. So when it comes to relationship, the number 1 thing you need to receive everything you desire is worthiness. That may sound like a bit of an esoteric concept. So let's dig into it, right? What is worthiness? How does it manifest? How do you cultivate that worthiness? Okay. So you might desire attention, tenderness, time, care, right? But when you imagine receiving every single thing you want, I want you to take a minute now and imagine your man just doing all the things. Everything you've been dreaming about, everything you want. Imagine him doing those things. And see what feelings come up in you. Okay, really tap into your heart, to your gut. What do you feel? When I've done this exercise with my clients, they often feel very uncomfortable. And a sense of guilt comes up. Like, well, he's doing too much, It often comes from like, well, he wants something in return. Is he going to feel put out by doing so much for me? It's weird. It's too much. It's too much, right? This is a sense of being unworthy to receive deep love, devotion, care, attention, affection, romance. What's really helped me to open my eyes to where I have needed to cultivate worthiness is you look at a woman who settles for less than you do. So maybe you have never been in a physically abusive relationship. And when you see women who are in physically abusive relationships, you kind of can't comprehend it, right? Well, why would she stay in a physically abusive relationship? I'm not shaming those women. I'm just saying there's a little bit of disconnect in understanding that experience. And that's because there's no part of you that is willing to stay in a situation that's physically unsafe. You just wouldn't. That's your lower range, right? That's your thermostatic range. Physical violence, no, that's not part of your experience, right? Now we get into emotional violence, right? Has someone called you names? Do they scream at you? Do they criticize you? Has that happened in your life? You might be available for that. There might be a little bit of that going on in your life. Now there's some women who look at that and go, whoa, like never, not at all. Never been in a relationship like that and never stay in a relationship like that. Those women's bottom limit is above emotional abuse, right? That has to do with their worthiness. That has to do with their sense of what is worth sticking around for. What pain will they tolerate in exchange for the love they're also getting? So when our worthiness is not fully manifest, we will actually feel uncomfortable with a man who gives us things above what we consider ourselves worthy for. So how do you know where you stand on this spectrum? Ask yourself what your relationships have looked like. Not just this one, But, kind of give yourself a sweep and go, what was the worst behavior I tolerated? The worst treatment, neglect-wise, honesty-wise, in terms of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like this person not investing in you, like you're giving them money, you're driving them places, you're catering to their needs. What else is something women do a lot? How badly have I been spoken to? How dismissed and uncared for have I felt? How often have I wondered if this person cares about me, right? That's your lower limit. So we have lower limits, which is our standards, right? Things I call them boundary standards and desires, but the boundaries are the stuff you just don't do. Your standards is what kind of always happens. Those are your implicit standards. It's like if the way that men generally treat you in your relationships are your standards. They're the mirror reflecting to you what your standards. They're not telling you what men are. That's the mistake we make as women. We go, well, men have always treated me this way, so that must be how men are. Actually, that's just what your standards are. Not blaming you for how they treated you. This is all totally innocent on everyone's part. It's just that a woman who had different standards would get treated like that maybe for 5 seconds and then she'd be gone, right? It wouldn't turn into a relationship, or the relationship wouldn't maintain it. And I'm not saying that I'm coming from you from Mount Olympus. No, honeys, I'm here because I have walked this walk. I have had to learn how to recognize my lack of worthiness. And, I always felt myself as a fairly confident person, able to speak up. It's not about being a wallflower or being a conventional doormat. Sometimes a feisty woman is also lacking worth. And this is something that was a big aha for me recently. You think, oh, I speak up for myself. I'll tell a man to step off. When you need to express yourself with force, it betrays a belief that if you don't, people will not treat you well. Again, there's a sneaky lack of worthiness there. So look at your standards. Then look at what you desire and ask yourself, how many times have you experienced that upper edge of treatment? The care, the devotion, the giving, the romance, the love, the commitment, the honesty, the support. Where in your life have you experienced those things? And how did it feel when you got them? And then ask yourself, when you've exceeded that, and how did it feel? You might have a man do even more for you and you're like, stop, that's enough. Like, please stop. Right? So that is why it can be so difficult to get what you want out of your relationship, because you are walking around with a glass ceiling. So even though you say you want it, even though you might long for things, there's something in you that is going to keep either fighting for it, which is the feisty side of it, or is going to shut down and have a really hard time asking for it or expressing needs or expressing desires and feelings, because it seems like it's a bit too much, right? Like, can I really ask for that? That's what women will ask me a lot, if they're allowed to feel what they feel, if they're allowed to want what they want, if they're allowed to ask for what they want to ask for. Can I? Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that we want someone else to validate our internal experience of desire and of longing? It's okay. That's what I'm here for. I like doing that. I like saying yes. Yes, you want what you want. Your wants are valid. Your feelings are valid. Your desire to express yourself is valid. Let's find a way to do that effectively. Let's find a way to do that gives you the best chances of getting what you desire. Because you can. I just had a client reach out to me and say, she's had a child since we worked together, and she's got a small business, and she just keeps practicing what I've taught her. She goes back to her notes, and it keeps working, and her relationship keeps getting better. And that's because we need new strategies, new beliefs, new techniques to break what we have always done, whether that's the feisty pattern or the doormat pattern. They are both opposite sides of the same coin of lacking worthiness. Now, the obvious thing you might all be thinking is, how did your dad treat you? I know you're smart women. I know you've done a little bit of the work already. Probably been to therapy. How did your dad treat you? Right? I remember when I was a extremely radical, outspoken feminist, And I would run into these women who'd say, I don't need feminism. And they used to drive me nuts. And I'd say, well, just because you don't need feminism, other people don't need feminism. But I started paying attention to these women, these anti-feminists, and wondering what it was about them that made them so sure that this was not something for them. And I realized down to a person, they had phenomenal relationship with their fathers. Their dads were not only physically available, they were protective, they supported them, they drove them places, and they were emotionally attached in a healthy way. They were emotionally available. These women don't see men the way women see men who have had fathers who didn't do those things, or didn't do some of those things, or didn't do any of those things, or weren't there at all. We know that our father is our first template for manhood, for the masculine. Brothers, the same thing. And I know a lot of women who've had struggles with fathers and brothers and uncles. And so it can seem like everywhere you look, it's the same experience. That has a very negative impact on your worthiness, because that was your first template for how a man should treat you. And you didn't think, oh, men are jerks. You didn't think. Were wired into your body that I'm not worthy of the royal treatment. Other women get that. That's not my experience. I'm not one of those women. I'm one of those women who gets, all right, maybe a little bit good, but not the best, because, well, that's just not what you experienced. And now, as you became a teenager, a woman, you might project it onto men. You might have been angry with men or had resentments. That will also sabotage your ability to receive love, because how we perceive all men will always affect how we perceive our men. You can't say men are the problem, but not you. You're the exception. You can't do it. Your mind does not think that way. I didn't plan to go down this track, but if you have resentments towards the masculine, towards your father, towards your brothers, towards your uncles, towards men at work, towards ex-boyfriends, that healing work needs to happen before you will fully receive your husband, before you will be able to trust him deeply. Because in a way, once we get married, that overlay goes on top of each other. Unfortunately, his mother comes across you. The women in his life that have imprinted on him, they start distorting your image to him. And all the men in our lives go across his face and distort his image to us. So it is our inner work to heal our wounds with the masculine, and also elevate our worthiness, and know that it's an inside job. That he might think you're worthy. He might love you. He might think you're amazing. But the way he treats you will mirror your worthiness. Of course, that's not 100%, right? Like, we can always talk about his wounds, and we can always talk about his habits and his temperament and his behavior. And that all matters. It does matter. But because you're here, we kind of put that on a shelf. We go, yes, he's going to have these different things, but a worthy woman doesn't spend her time fussing too deeply over why he doesn't do or why he does do. She just asks. She just presents. She just expresses. She just is comfortable with her needs. She's comfortable with her desires. She owns them. She's not embarrassed. So if you have a worthiness problem, you might feel fear or shame when you actually experience or admit to what you want and what you need. You might think that you need to be a better person to be worthy. You might be trying to earn love. So maybe you need to be kinder. Maybe you need to be prettier. Maybe you need to be thinner. Maybe you need to be a better mom. Maybe you need to be a better housekeeper. Maybe you need to make more money. Maybe you need to be more fashionable. Maybe you need to be more spiritual. It doesn't matter what category. It's just a way for us to keep striving and not receiving, and to block what we want by saying, well, really, I'm not that great. Really, if people knew me, they'd see how out of alignment I am. I mean, and I struggle with this personally. I found that motherhood did a number on my worthiness, because it felt like an absolutely impossible task. I had extremely high expectations for myself because I had dreamed of it. And I still have to remember that I don't need to be a perfect mother to be worthy of love. I don't have to be up to my own standards to be worthy of the royal treatment. I don't have to never psychologically damage my children, right? That's the whole, you watch too much Gabor Mate, you feel like you breathe the wrong way, your kid's going to grow up to a narcissist or something. You don't have to be a perfect mom. You don't have to be a perfect wife. Actually, in my work, what I've discovered is that when we embrace all of ourselves and we go our own way and do our own thing and stop trying to be anything for him, it absolutely lights up the chemistry in the relationship. Because now your spark gets turned on, your light gets turned on, and you start moving and doing and having, and he's like, oh, look at that woman. Have you noticed in romantic movies that the woman is always walking away? She gives a look, she smiles, and then she's gone. And then maybe she does it 2 or 3 times before they meet up. She's doing her own thing. She's got her own business. She's not worried. She's not trying to please him. She's not performing for him. That's worthiness. That's worthiness. Okay. That is part 4 of What Women Want. Please go back and watch the whole thing if you haven't seen it. Comment below. #replay if you're on the replay. Ask me your questions. I will go through the comments and answer every single one. Comment to me personally if you would like to receive one-on-one coaching. If you want to get started right away, you can join my Happily Married Woman program where you can work at your own pace and get all this wisdom that I give to my one-on-one clients distilled systematically that you can work through that will change your marriage. It will radically improve it. Unless you're in an abusive situation, which not many people showing up probably are, it will work for you. I promise you that. If you're not sure, you can always message me. I'm happy to chat out with you if this is the right fit for you. All right. That was a lot of fun. I can't wait to see you in the messages, in the comments, and back in the group. See you soon. Bye-bye.